we're going to keep going with the fantasy theme. We've got Josef, who, this is a long title, so I have to read it, is the author of Excerpts from an Unknown Guidebook Part 2, Cave in the Rock, from the Folktellers Universe. So, Josef, the screen is all yours.
Well, thanks, Stephanie. Hi, everyone. Again, I'm Josef Bastian. Stephanie and I, we've been working together for a while, and I was like, today I was just thinking like, wow, how do I, the second book in the series, The Cave in the Rock, came out in August, and the series is complete. So there's 8 books in the series, and right now we're scheduled to release a book a year. But I think it's really, what I want to talk about today was the Folktellers Universe, this whole universe that, I created, but now there's a bunch of other people involved, and it's been a 12-year journey that started right here in Detroit. So, I kind of want to give people sort of the background of what is this Folktellers Universe. And first of all, Folktellers, the Folkteller Universe is a universe where stories have power. So the tagline is whoever holds the story wields the power. And in the guidebook series, the main protagonist, Aaron, learns he's a folkteller and apprentice to his grandfather. And the folktellers are people who travel time and space to tell people the stories they need to hear. And they're pursued by these shadow people that are from another realm that are trying to steal the stories. So, that's sort of the storyline of the series. But the way it all started here in Detroit with, I became fascinated with folklore and legend for years. I've been a published author for over 20 years. And during the recession of 2008, 2009, I came across this old legend of the Nain Rouge, which is French for red dwarf. And there's this 300-year-old legend that I had never heard about before, that the French brought over when they founded Detroit. And the legend is that there's this red dwarf that appears as a harbinger of doom just before bad events. So we were in the middle of a very bad event in Detroit and the surrounding region and the country. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to resurrect this legend and give it a modern spin? Because, people thought I was crazy when I said, hey, have you ever heard of the Nain Rouge? They're like, I do not know what you're talking about. So I did that. We did a book. I wrote the first book that ended up a second and third. So it ended up being a trilogy. We did a graphic novel and even a short film on it. And that all started in 2009. And really up until about 2015, that became sort of the fertile ground which the Folktellers Universe and the Guidebook series was built upon. And one of the major themes beyond just the storytelling was this resurrection of regional folk tales and legends, because what I learned through doing the Nain Rouge series was that around the world there must be these old legends that either get trapped in a region or they get forgotten by history. And so I started doing a lot of research. I spent actually a couple years doing research of international folktales and legends. And sure enough, they're everywhere. And I began to see sort of the connective tissue of this universe that's built on storytelling and folktales, and came up with the term what I call crypto folk, which is hidden stories. And this idea that stories are the things that connect us. And so this guidebook series that the first book came out in 2018, we re-released it in June, and then we got a new publisher, Momentum Books. And so they put out book 2 in August, and then the series will continue. We've actually built out at this universe, it's what we call transmedia. And it's more than just books, it's really entertainment. And if you've never heard of the term transmedia, the concept behind transmedia is from a storytelling perspective, realizing that everyone engages with a story differently. Some people like to read, some people want to watch a movie, some people want to play a video game. And if you take a transmedia approach at storytelling, what that's acknowledging is if you, with intention, tell a story recognizing that the medium will change the way that people interact with it. So I'm a traditional writer, I write books, but in the Folktellers Universe, we're actually simultaneously, launching a TV series. We actually worked with musicians and did a theme song. We're looking at apps and video games, and we're doing this in concert, so all together versus, typically what happens in the entertainment world, it's a linear approach. So typically, you get a book, a bestseller, it gets picked up for television or film, that goes very well. If that all gets green lighted, you end up into merchandising, toys, and things like that. And that's kind of the linear approach. And we took a whole different approach. The example I use is the Marvel Universe. And I would argue, and there's people that will agree with me, that the Marvel Universe wasn't a designed universe. It was a universe that was named after the fact, because the way Marvel started was you had comic book writers and illustrators who decided at one point, hey, why don't we cross storylines between Spider-Man and the Hulk? And they tried that out, and that worked great. And they kept doing this. They kept interacting these storylines. And after, a decade or two, they looked back and said, wow, we actually have an entire universe here of superheroes that have been interacting in each other's worlds in the same universe. And what we thought was, what if you did that, but you did it on purpose? Like, you started out that way. And that was really sort of the transmedia approach to storytelling that really all started with, the hook is the folklore and the legend. So it sounds like it's funny when we went to publishers and pitched this concept. And what I had done was I had written the series before I even published the first book. And I did that on instinct and thank goodness I did, because by book 3, I had written myself into a corner and had to go back and kind of open the universe up more. But when we went to traditional publishers, it was like, they said, this is just too much, we wouldn't even know where to pick this up. So we started our own company. We started Folktellers, and the first book we self-published and won a bunch of awards and did very well. And then we picked up a traditional publisher, and now we're kind of going down the road with the TV series and with merchandising. We just started merchandising last month with some of the Nain Rouge products. So a lot going on in the Folktellers universe. As far as The Cave in the Rock, so that's book 2 in the series. Aaron, as I told you, is the protagonist. He has his friends Wendy and Jake. Wendy is a traveler. She's the one who helps Folktellers travel through time and dimension. And then there's the Guardians, which Jake is a guardian who help protect them along the way. So, the major story arc of the entire series is that the Folktellers learn that there's actually a master guidebook, which is the book of all books that holds all stories. And it had been separated because it was actually too powerful to exist. So the whole series, the way that rolls out is it's kind of a race between them and the Shadow People to find the sections of the master guidebook and put it back together before the Shadow People get it. The wrinkle that makes sort of the series very intriguing is that the Shadow People aren't just these amorphous shadows. They actually begin to manifest as creatures of myth and legend from around the world. So as the kids go seeking on their adventures, seeking these sections of the master guidebook, they end up having to battle these creatures of myth and legend. And that's really sort of the major arc of the entire series. And Cave in the Rock is part of that. So that is a lot, I know, but I hope someone would have some questions around, what Folktellers is about and our unique approach to sort of modern storytelling.
Yeah, let's open it up. Anyone have a question? I know it's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
Tell us about your current focus right now. Like, what's your number one goal with Folktellers?
Sure. So it's really interesting in the entertainment world because of COVID. And I think we're all storytellers here. And I think this could be compelling conversation. So what's happened in the entertainment world is because of COVID and you have everyone at home now, all the budgets have shifted to streaming and television series. And you're going to see that probably for the next 24 months. So, 18 months ago, we were trying to sort out whether this was going to be a television series, a streaming series, or a feature film. And we needed to make that decision. And fortunately or unfortunately, that decision was made for us just this year because of, where the dollars were going to invest in television series. So we're actually, we have our executive producer, we've got a production company, and we're working on a series right now. So the series will be written, it'll be adapted. And I think that's another thing that's important for writers, for traditional writers to know that those are decisions that you have to make as a writer. So I'm not doing the adaptation as the creator of the Folktellers Universe and the guidebook series and the writer. I'm not a screenwriter, nor do I pretend to be. So we actually have adaptation writers, screenwriters that are doing the adaptation. They get my blessing for the episodes. But, that's another thing to consider as you're looking to do adaptations for your work and you begin to get into these things. So that's really been our focus now, with it's been sold. That's all I can say right now, but there'll be more coming out after the holidays, some announcements about what's happening in the Folktellers universe.
Roni has a good question in the chat box as well. Roni, feel free to take yourself off mute if you'd like to.
Sure. I have a question. Can the adaptation or the storytelling be done in a physical studio, or can a person use their home equipment to utilize this new form of media?
That's a great question, Roni. Thank you for asking it, because I think the answer is it's yes to both. I mean, there's so much technology is changing so fast. If you've never heard of like Unreal Engine, that's what the Mandalorian was all done and basically green screen. It's at a much lower cost, and the quality is incredible if you haven't seen it. So people that are very tech savvy, I think, can do a lot. Minimally, they could do a lot of early composition work to actually sell the property. I think you could do that from your home equipment. But people that are very, that have their own home studio, it's incredible what can be done now. So, there's so much potential there, and will continue to be so. There's really a lot of change in the industry around how production is being done. And I think COVID's driven a lot of that too. That's why you're seeing animation has skyrocketed, because you didn't need to be on location. Animators can work remotely. They've always been able to do that. So you're seeing a lot more animated series lately because of that.
Kristen has a question as well. Go for it, Kristen.
Hey, so I just had a question. So you went with your publisher is the Our Magazine publisher, is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, and so when you're working with a publisher, how do you keep the right to option your work? So I'm still on the fence whether I want to go self-publishing or take my manuscript to a traditional publisher. But one thing I could see is this novel becoming either a film or a series, but how do you ensure that you keep the rights to option your own work? Is that within when you're signing a contract with a publisher, or is that something that you bring to the table right away, or how does that kind of traditionally work?
Yeah, Kristen, that's a great question. So, ours is a little unique, like my situation. So I'm a writer and author, but I'm through the Folktellers as an actual company, so it ends up being a business to business versus a typical author relationship is you have an agent who's brokering the deal for you, and all those things are negotiable. But typically any major publishing house is going to want to have the rights, because frankly, that's where they're making the money. They're making the money in licensing the rights for the film or the TV series. But it's all negotiable. So, it's on a case by case basis. So your agent might present to you a deal where the publisher, is offering you money up front and a certain percentage, but they want the rights. And they may make it contingent on having the rights, or they may say, you know what, we don't want the rights. We'll keep the book rights, and you can hold on to your rights. So it's all negotiable. If you're a first-time author, they'll probably the terms won't be in your favor. I mean, that's just the reality of the business world. But for us, it was more of a business-to-business deal. I wasn't going through an agent. I don't have a literary agent. We have other we have licensing agents actually that are brokering the deals for us. But every deal that comes to us, we negotiate. So that's my recommendation: is know that it is all negotiable. They may give you a boilerplate contract and say that's it. But if you feel very strongly about your work and its viability as a commercial product, then I say negotiate. And if you have an agent, work with your agent. But the dollars, I will tell you, the dollars, initially are not in book sales. And this is what I tell other authors: is you got to be in it for the long haul. I mean, the thing that books have is that books have staying power. But for those books to get traction in sort of our distracted world, it just takes more time. So the revenue from books is normally going to take a lot longer, but it's more sustainable. Where with a TV series or film or merchandising, you're going to get a spike. You're going to get a spike in the amount of money you get. You're going to get a spike in sales, and then you're going to get a drop. So it's you get that versus ideally your books are going to be like a slow growth.
Thank you, Joseph. We're right on time. Thank you for sharing your insight and your knowledge about the industry. If you guys want to check out the Folktellers Universe, Joseph, tell us how they find you.
Yeah, we're on all the major channels. The website is folktellers.com. And we've got all our our YouTube videos, our movie trailers are out there. So yeah, we're very easy to find.
Thank you, Joseph. Always love having you with us.
Great, thanks.